time to hand out grades to Julio, Teo, and the rest of the Mariners outfield here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, October 19th, 2023. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On. That's LOCKDON. You'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Thank you so much for making us your first listen, subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. And on yesterday's episode of CTZ, we discuss a reality where the Mariners actually signed Shohei Ohtani and talked about what else the Mariners would have to do in order to build a ball club capable of winning a World Series, winning a division, et cetera, after signing Shohei Ohtani. It's a lot more complicated than you would think. So if that sounds interesting to you, head on over to the Patreon, sign up. You can get that episode for free if you sign up for the free trial. All right, on the show today, we're handing out 2023 grades to Julio Rodríguez, Teoscar Hernández, Dominic Canzone, and Cade Marlowe. Now, we did Jared Kelenic yesterday, so if you want to hear our thoughts on his season, check that episode out. And be sure to stick around during this episode to find out how you can win some dope autographed Mariners cards, Colby's collection. But first, Colby, let's start at the top with our grades. Let's talk about Julio. Obviously, a great season when you look at just the overall numbers: 275, 333, 485, 126 WRC plus, 5.9 F4, 32 home runs, 103 RBI, 37 stolen bases, 24.5% K rate, 6.6% walk rate. He's breaking records. He's doing things that very few people have done in the 100+ year history of Major League Baseball. But there's a lot of context to sift through here when we're talking about Julio's second season in the big. So how did you feel about his year?
I'm giving him like F minus. No, I'm not going to get that much hate, but I will get some hate for this. I think it's a B plus, somewhere in that range. Yeah, Julio took some steps forward this year. Probably not quite as many as we would like, but, the strikeout rate did go down some. His defense in center field did get significantly better. The home run and the stolen base numbers did, go up. He was good. Like, there's no way around it. Julio was good, with the exception of the last 2 weeks of the year. And in those last 2 weeks, we saw Julio get chance after chance to get his big hit, to kind of put the team on his back. And he never really did. Not in September. That was more JP's shtick. Now, we did see Julio put the team on his back a little bit in August, which was an incredible month. One of the best months in Mariners history. Certainly.
One of the best months in baseball history, quite frankly.
Right, he went 17 hits in 4 games or whatever, broke the record.
Yeah.
August was insane, but 1 month doesn't completely outdo what was first half. He was okay in April and May. He was really bad in June, and July he was pretty good. August he was incredible, and then September, the last 2 weeks, he went back to those bad Julio at bats where he was chasing everything and he was swinging out of his shoes and he's trying to hit the 9-run homer and all that stuff, and it was a disaster. Julio was probably your worst hitter in those last 10 to 12 games. He didn't really contribute much at all in that last stretch, and that does weigh. He is only 22, so like obviously it's not like he'll never be that guy who steps up and carries the team in those big playoff type situations. Definitely can still happen for him, and I'm trying not to be too harsh on the guy because again, he is just 22 years old, but you're the star, man. You're the franchise player. Like, you get graded more harshly than other guys do. You get graded more harshly than JP does because you're the guy. You're the one that they're building this entire franchise around, rightfully so. And so when you don't come through in those big moments as often as Julio didn't, that you have to wear that. That has to weigh down on what your overall value to the club was. So Julio, great year, set some records, had an August that we'll never forget, and certainly showed that there's even more still left in the tank. He's probably going to finish top 5 in the MVP voting. Like, it's really hard to look at this and go like, oh, well, he disappointed, because I don't think he did. But the reality of the situation is that in the last 2 weeks or so of the year, he fell flat on his face when the team needed him the most, and that is a negative mark on his report card. It has to be. So I'll go, B plus, and I'm pretty confident that at some point in the future he will be that guy who when the game is tight and when the team needs somebody to carry them in the playoffs or in the playoff like situations, that he'll be the guy that you want up. But for now, he fell flat. He did at the end of the year, and that greatly impacts his grade, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's hard not to have those last 10 games, and especially that last game against the Astros, really stick in the back of your mind here when thinking about Julio's season as a whole. The month of August, again, just an incredible month. One of the best months you'll ever see in baseball. 429, 474, 724. That's a 232 WRC plus. Like, seriously, that's ridiculous. 7 home runs, 30 RBI, 11 steals, 13 multi-hit games. He only went hitless in 3 games. Are you serious? Just a ridiculous month. But when you take that month out of his overall numbers, the overall numbers don't look that great. Like, March through July, he had a 107 WRC plus. In September, he had a 103 WRC plus. His 2023 as a whole, his slash line over the course of the full season minus August, 246, 311, 439. It's a 105 WRC plus. Players with similar slash lines this year: Josh Bell, Brent Rooker, Vinny Pasquantino, Carlos Santana. Every player with a 105 WRC plus this year: Alec Baum, Eloy Jimenez, Edward Olivares, Charlie Blackmon, Josh Bell, Teoscar Hernandez. Those guys are good players. They help, but that's not really the company that you want the face of your franchise to be in. Right. So again, like, the overall numbers look great for Julio, but that month of August is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. Because without that month of August, Julio was essentially like 5 to 7% better than league average. And that, frankly, isn't good enough. Like, good player, that is a good player, especially when you factor in his impact on the base pass, his defense. Like, he's still going to get a B plus for me, because he might very well exit this season with another Silver Slugger and a Gold Glove. Like, he was very good in a lot of different areas for this ball club. But when you talk about his struggles in the clutch, and I know that overall his bases loaded numbers are pretty good, and the high leverage numbers are pretty good, but when you think about specific moments, the biggest moments of this season when Julio had a chance to either win the game, tie the game, bring the Mariners back in the game, there's only a few times where he actually came through. You think about the grand slam in Kansas City, you think about the home run in Minnesota, there's a couple of other moments, right? But that Houston series, and specifically that last game against Houston after Hector Neris went after, that was arguably the worst game of Julio's career. Honestly, I don't think it's even arguable. Like, I think that was definitively Julio's worst game of his career. And that was just kind of a culmination of everything that I've had issue with Julio this year. Like, I have been very outspoken about Julio's struggles this year, and I don't necessarily blame it all on Julio. I think it's just the circumstance of the situation is like, yeah, he's very young, and that's totally fine. And I get that he's going to have bumps in the road because of that. But he is, because of the roster build, the star of this team. He has to be the engine, and he just wasn't at times for long periods of time. And you just really didn't know, except for the month of August, which Julio you were going to get on a night-to-night basis. And so I can't give him an A because of that. I can't. And again, when you look at the overall numbers minus August, that's not good enough for your star player. That's not good enough for your for the guy that's supposed to be the best player on your roster. All right, so Teoscar Hernández is the next Mariners outfielder we'll be grading in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Sleeper. We're getting close to crowning a new MLB champion, which means the clock is ticking on your chance to 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Pick more or less on stats for your favorite players like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for up to a 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you could win big. If things didn't go well in your home league this year, no worries. You can still salvage the fantasy baseball season over at Sleeper. There you can pick the players you want and call your shot. And when you use promo code Locked On, that's LOCKEDON, you'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. So before we get into our grades for Teoscar Hernández and the rest of the Mariners outfield in 2023, quick reminder, talked about this the last couple of shows, but a quick reminder once again that we are running another giveaway. Colby's giving away some of his cards. Colby, quick reminder of which cards you're giving away.
Yeah, so up this time, we have this Matt Brash, which is up first, autograph card. We have a Brian Wu autograph card. If you're watching on YouTube, they're on the screen right now. We have this Bryce Miller autograph card. And then I guess kind of the grand prizes, we have this Harry Ford autograph card. So Brash, Wu, Miller, Ford. It's a pretty good lineup. And all those cards can be yours, and Ty will tell you how.
Yes, all you have to do is subscribe to the Locked On Mariners YouTube channel. If you're already subscribed, great. All you have to do after that point is leave a comment in the comment section of one of our videos posted in between this Tuesday and October 30th, and then you'll be entered to win. We will be picking one winner per card, and in order for us to give away these cards, we have to hit certain subscriber goals. So at 9,750 subscribers, we're giving away the Matt Brash card. 10,000 subscribers, we're giving away the Bryce Miller card. At 10,250 subscribers, we're giving away the Brian Wu card. And at 10,500 subscribers, we're giving away the Harry Ford card. Terms and conditions in the description of this episode. So, Colby, I pounded the table for Teoscar Hernández last offseason. I was very, very, very excited when they actually wound up trading for him. And then it did not go according to plan. Look, he was still an above league average hitter by WRC plus. He was a 105 WRC plus. He slashed 258, 305, 435 with 26 home runs, 93 RBI. That's great. But then 31.1% K rate. He had 211 strikeouts this year, which is the third most in Major League Baseball. Now, obviously, some of that is helped by the fact that he played a lot more games than most people in Major League Baseball. So naturally, those cumulative stats are going to be a lot higher than some. But still, 211 strikeouts, third most in MLB, right behind Eugenio Suarez's teammate. That's a big reason, not the only reason, but a big reason for some of the Mariners' offensive struggles this year. 5.6% walk rate, which is a hell of a lot better than he started with. He was hovering around 1.4% for a good chunk of the season to start the year. I remember that very vividly. So yeah, very disappointing season for Teoscar Hernández. What are you giving him grade-wise?
C. It was
that might be generous.
It was acceptable, but it met the bare minimum of expectations. So I guess C minus. It's very mediocre. It doesn't stand out. Unlike Julio, he didn't have the God month, but he did have a couple of stretches where he was, a really good hitter. He still finished 105 WRC plus. So it's hard for me to go lower than a C minus just from that alone. But the defense started out looking like a nice bonus, but of course we remember the big play, the big error, the missed grounder or whatever that turned into a triple and kind of turned the tide of that entire game against Houston. So yeah, Teoscar C-. I wasn't impressed. I'm not, necessarily sad that he's leaving, probably leaving. I'm not, pounding the table for the Mariners to re-sign him. So yeah, I think that's a C-. The strikeouts were ridiculous. The defense got worse as the year went on, and he was just kind of mediocre with the bat for large chunks of the season. So yeah, based on what you needed him to be and what he actually gave you, C-.
I'm gonna go D plus because
That's because Ty's hurt.
I was
Ty
scorned.
staked his reputation,
I was
which
scorned
was non-existent.
by Teoscar Hernández, and now again he was slightly above league average by WRC plus standards. He did have the 26 home runs. He did drive in 93 runs. That's great. That's awesome. But the high strikeout rates, the amount of games that I watched where he looked completely lost at the plate, I lost count of how many times he just looked
Almost disinterested.
Yeah, just looked completely, utterly lost at the plate. It was incredibly frustrating. He was a very frustrating watch most nights. And then, the defense was great for like the first 2 months of the season. It was like, wow, he's actually taken a step forward defensively, and that's kind of made up for some of the offensive struggles. But then he started to fall back down to earth, and the defense became very quickly well below average in right field. And so he wasn't even making up for the lack of offense in that regard. And so for the most part, he was a mediocre player. He wasn't the protection for Julio and JP that he was supposed to be, right? And not even for JP, right? Like JP was kind of a bonus this year, what he was able to do. So it was really like you brought in Teo to be that second guy, to be the 2 and the 1-2 punch with Julio. He was supposed to be the Robin to Julio's Batman, and he wasn't. By month, his WRC plus 84 in March and April, 82 in May, 160 in June, 46 in July, 191 in August, and then 76 in September and October. We never got like just an average Teo this year. Like we just got one extreme or the other. He was either really, really bad for a month-long period, or he was one of the best hitters in baseball for a month-long period. And now in August, like everyone on the Mariners was hitting. So it's like, how much stock am I even really putting into that? This Teo's season was so disappointing, man. And when Jerry, like, in his end of the year press conference goes up there and says, we want to cut down on the strikeouts and all that. I think he's specifically talking about Teoscar Hernández in that situation. Like Teo's not coming back. And that's sad because like, I like Teo, the person. I think he's a great fit for the clubhouse. Like he's great vibes guy, right? But if he's producing like this and then he's going to ask for $15 to $20 million a year, I'm sorry, man, I'm gonna have to pass, because it's not that hard for me to find that kind of production out of a corner outfielder with probably less strikeouts.
A league average bat in the corner outfield. You could do that with a right platoon partner with Jared Kelenic. Like,
yeah,
Teoscar was bad. Like there's just, he was bad.
1.8 F4. He wasn't even like technically an everyday player. Like by 2 is usually the cutoff there for
sure
for everyday players.
Fringy everyday guy, and that's how he looked a lot of the time. So
yeah.
Disaster of a season relative to expectations, and the second year in a row where Teoscar has slid from the year before. So yeah, this could just be Safeco or T-Mobile Field curse or whatever, the losers who don't want to examine things carefully, whatever they want to call it.
Marine layer.
Oh yeah, there you go. Just the marine layer. That's all it ever is. Just the marine layer. Maybe it's just the marine layer, but it
Marine
also could
layer,
be
a very good podcast, but
it's a thing, but not to like the extent that like a lot of people think it is. Because who never had a problem with the marine layer? Nelson Cruz. So yeah, don't tell me the marine layer affects every righty when Nelson Cruz is hitting line drive pimp jobs. Like, nope, sorry, try again. Right. Teoscar's just not good. He's regressing. Like, I think we just call that. He's 31 now. It looks like he's regressing. Strikeouts are going up, walks are going down. WRC plus has gone down each of the last 2 years. You just do better. Teoscar gets a C-.
D+ for me. Again, I was scorned by Teo. Yeah.
Origin story stuff.
We'll always have the walk-off against the Blue Jays, though. We'll always have that. I'll always hold that near and dear to my heart. All right, let's talk about Dom Canzone and Cade Marlowe, a couple of young guys that came up and helped a little bit. We'll talk about them in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Jace Medical. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but our global supply chains are fragile. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jace Medical is your solution for that. Just fill out our online form and one of our board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate. Then they will send your prescriptions to one of our partner pharmacies where your Jace order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. Everyone should feel empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical plus an additional $20 off by using the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. So we're going to continue our outfield grades here for the 2023 Mariners, and we're going to start here with Dominic Canzone, who, of course, was one of the three pieces heading back from Arizona in the Paul Sewald deal. Canzone immediately slotted into the Mariners' 26-man roster in hopes of adding some offensive production when they really, really needed it. And Canzone had a mixed bag in his 2-ish months, we'll say, in Seattle. He ends up finishing with a 79 WRC plus, just slash 215, 248, 407, 17% K rate, 4.3% walk rate. He had 11 doubles, 5 home runs. He's had a pretty good month of August and start of September. But then as we got into about the second week of September onward, he was pretty much useless at the plate. And then the Mariners started playing him less and less. And yeah, it also became abundantly clear that he was essentially a platoon bat. He had really no hope against most lefties. So yeah, how do you feel about Canzone's cup of coffee essentially with the Mariners?
See, like, it was pretty mediocre, and the idea that, like, oh, the Mariners did upgrade their lineup at the deadline because they got Dom Canzone. Nope. He wasn't the upgrade to your lineup like you were hoping he was. He was bad. Had some moments, sure. I still like the player overall long term, and I still think that he can definitely help you as soon as next year. But for what he was this year, he mediocre at best, and not a great defender. He made some great plays, but if you actually know anything about playing a little bit of outfield, those were great plays out of necessity because he made a bad play and then he had to
out of
make up
recovery.
for it. Yeah. So Canzone is a guy that Mariner fans love, and like a lot of them are ready to just give him the full-time left field job for some reason and all that. I don't see it personally. I don't think he should enter 2024 with a good shot to make the major league roster. I'm sure he will, but I think that's a mistake. I think he should be in AAA for a good chunk of the year. But he was okay. Like I said, I think C is the highest you can reasonably go. I just 26-year-old rookie or whatever, and comes up and he's 22% below league average at the plate, and that's kind of like his only tool is his hit tool. Like, C.
Yeah. I'll give him a C. I'll give the idea behind him a D, because like this wasn't it. We said that at the time of the deadline, and it pretty much played out that way. I mean, again, he was fairly productive during the month of August and into the early stages of September, but once things got very real for the Mariners, and look, a lot of guys struggled. It wasn't just Canzone, so I'm not putting a ton on him here, but he was really bad for the last 3 weeks of the season. He didn't help you at all. And when you add guys at the deadline, they're supposed to help you down the stretch. They're supposed to help you get into the postseason, go to the World Series, hopefully. All right, Cade Marlowe. He got the call up in early August, I believe. and obviously made his presence felt almost immediately with the grand slam against the Angels. How did you feel about Marlowe's season, Colby?
Marlowe was pretty mediocre. He definitely helped keep you afloat early in the Jared Kelenic injury time, but it when the league made their adjustment to him, he had no shot, which is why he never saw the big leagues, for the rest of the year. But did come up with some big hits, made some nice plays defensively. I'll go C plus. Because there was a time where he was one of your better players, and he showed some stuff and he had some big at bats, but they just I don't feel great about him going into next year, but I think he's a good AAA stash, so C plus.
I would give him a B plus. I mean, like, I know he got exposed there over the last couple of weeks, so of him being on the roster, but like, he gave you something when you weren't expecting really anything out of him. So, I mean, he helped you win a couple of games this year, undoubtedly. Like that to me, like it bumps up his grade quite a bit. But yeah, in terms of like, do I think there's a future for him in Seattle? I don't really know. I don't have high hopes for that. But overall, I mean, when at a time when you needed help, he gave you that. And, eventually that ran its course. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good year for Cade Marlowe. I would consider that a success overall for Marlowe. So yeah, B plus for me. I won't give him an A, but I'll give him a B plus. All right, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dan Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.